Well, now, Gil for cada codinage. Yeah, it's okay.
Passes.
Talking about meta and robots for a better developer experience.
Mm. Oh. So thanks for coming, especially given the other talk. Well, and thanks for Code Syntax for hosting us and for you all to come. So that's me. And actually, yes. And actually, I will do two talks in one talk. One is the serious one about Plone meta. The other one is just that yesterday, rather than being at the excellent trainings that I've been told, I went for hiking here in Eibar, so I got some pictures. So quality is not so good, but just to have some fun, so that you can enjoy the scenery. So yeah, I'm Gil Forcada. You can see things that I do in GitHub. I work for a newspaper, a German newspaper, and a small one at it, so it's not that big or known. So it's called the Freitag. My colleagues are here, the ones that actually do the work. I just take the credits. And if you are around Plone a little bit, you might know about Jenkins breaking every now and then. That's me. And I've been trying. So that was for breaking it. So yeah, so some animals there. I did this hiking, and then there's I will do some trail, this summer. So let's do a bit of exercise together. So who has been? So raise your hands, please. Who has been using Plone for 1 year? At least 1 year. So keep hands up. Okay, so well, perfect. 5, quite a lot. 10 and 20. Cool. So more up of my hiking. But past is past. So who expects? I mean, planning is different but difficult, but who's expecting to be here next year? Yeah, in Plone, in the Plone wall. 5 years? How's the confidence in 10 years? Who's the brave one about 20 years? Still not retired? Okay. So, I mean, well, it, if we are not, if not all of us will be here in 20 years, we have to pass knowledge. So there's this little story about the three pigs, I guess you know. So one built it with a straw, but the wolf got it. So one built it with logs and won it, and the third one did a better job. So if we are already 20 years old and we want to keep 20 years more, we better do good foundations on our stack, which is 20 years old already, will be 40 years old in 20 years. So we and especially like the presentation that we saw before at the beginning, that especially the backend has to have a lot of maintenance, but it's not anymore the shiny cool thing that everyone looks at. So we better have a rock solid and stable, easy, predictable way to work with it, to maintain it mostly. otherwise things, if the foundation, it doesn't matter how much the castle looks fancy, if the foundation is not so good, eventually things will collapse, as Timo was mentioning about a few other projects. So more pictures. So, well, we have a scale problem at the end. So few of you will be here in 1, 2, 5 years, 10 maybe, a few, 20. But we have to keep passing this knowledge. We have to keep passing the ways to maintain that, because people come and go, but so far Plone stays. And if we want to remain that, we have to keep that running. Moritz aside, have anyone heard about Plone? Sorry, Plone. PEP 420? Raise hands. No. So that's native namespaces in Python. That's already available since Python 3.3, so eons ago. In short, it's about that you don't need to put these fancy or seemingly innocuous init files inside your Plone app. Plone app content type, so those in the Plone and app folders, that you can remove those. That seems like a stupid, I mean, it's just a line of Python code, or well, two with the import. So that sounds like not so much of a problem, or what can go wrong. But the thing is that setup tools is already printing plenty of warnings. Whenever you start being instance, you see like thousands of them. And the thing is that so setup tools is already deprecating them, because the native ones are better. And the problem is that you have to do there has to be a 0 day where you switch from one to the other. You cannot have Plone app content types with the init files and Plone app dexterity without them. That means that every single Plone, Zope, collective, and even your internal packages to begin with have to do a 1 day switch to this namespacing. So sure, in your company you have maybe 5, 10, 15 add-ons that share the same namespace, so you can fully manage, decide exactly at which day you want to do that. But in Zope and Plone, you might have some release dates, announcements in advance, etc. But on the collective, that's the Wild West. So, well, have fun. So, yeah, I mean, Plone has more than 100 or around 100 packages. 100 package of Plone ourselves. The collective is, as I was saying, like an internals, like. And as we started seeing with the Plone Bay, no, what was that? Plone client, Plone components, Plone registry, the JavaScript is already turning into like, let's build lots of components, so they don't have the PEP, of course, problem, but eventually they might have some other things to do. So, of course, the solution is to pass knowledge. We are not gonna stay here forever, so we have to make things easier. So, for example, Moritz wants to take a 1-month vacation, so who's making the next security release? Because there's a security. Whoever, so raise your hands if you feel comfortable doing the next Plone release.
We recorded it.
Okay. Well, I mean, so pass knowledge. Perfect. Okay, sure. But you didn't raise a hand.
No,
Only Eric. Only Eric really. So or even make like making single packages releases. Like we have to we have to keep doing that. So that's why it's we of course underestimate because we know it and we are there, but the next day that we are not there, who's gonna do that? So why that's the documentation and the training are so priceless. And of course, that's usually the heads of people starting to learn about Plone and all the technologies and everything. That's all the moving parts. So making things easier, as easy to understand, like just we never measured that, but if we run a scan on the collective packages, for example, how many of them are using the Plone API, and how much that make all the collective add-ons much simpler and easier and faster to develop. The same can be said with the REST API. That's why the JavaScript, the Volto and the JavaScript sub part of the community is doing can do so amazing job, because they hide everything behind the REST API. It's not that just we cannot put everything under the Plone API, because otherwise it will turn the mess that we have now. But the ideas of going this direction, that's the important part. But especially me, I like to talk and giving talks, for example. And it's all nice to discuss about, like, oh, let's do this, let's do that, and so on. But let's use this approach, let's use that approach. But especially what we need and what would foster in the same idea that Plone API or the REST API fostered a lot of or lower the barrier to make contributions and make new add-ons, is to have what I call a predictable developer experience. That you are on Plone app content types and you want to make a bug fix, and the next day you find another bug in Plone app caching, and that you don't have to learn how to run the tests for it. You don't have to care that the CI is working for it, that the documentation, that the everything that it's that involves about using and contributing to Plone, it's there. So for example, as I was saying, like testing and coverage, QA tools, everything that is there. If every single package configures that on in their own ways, in these ones we use Tox, this other we use Snox, this one is hosted in GitLab, this other one is somewhere behind my network, then it's even more of a barrier to start contributing. By having a common ground, by having some shared experience, developer experience, then it's just the very same bread and butter everywhere. So, but then that was the point. So if we have a predictable developer experience, but we have to do that for every single package, and we have to maintain it on every single package on our own, that's just rinse and repeat, sure, but at some point after configuring the very same configuration on 3 different packages, you just get fed up and just give up. And then at the same time, we have to have some tools automations to handle all these churn, because at the end, sure, this developer experience of course comes with a little bit of cost, or but if we do it, that means that we can share that. Otherwise you end up with commit like you did your functionality, then you push it, and eventually Jenkins says like no, and then you run it and you fix it, and then oh, but then again, oh sure, and you have your git log, rather than saying like I did this and that. It's like, oh, I did this, but then that, and that of course for you yourself 2 years later, 5 years later, 2 weeks later, it's like, what was that? So better try to avoid. So So a bit of just quick history. So at the beginning there were absolutely nothing, or well, a bit of CI even not. People started using tools like some were fun, were good or nice enough to run some QA tools, or some the tests before running the test before pushing, etc. But it was a bit of free to serve. Eventually, there was Plone received code analysis that more or less helped keeping that. Eventually, later we had a QA job in CI in Jenkins, but was largely ignored. So then we pushed those reports from CI back to GitHub as comments, still largely ignored. Then, thanks to a sprint in Catalonia, of course, in Barcelona, there was Mr. Roboto that was connecting a bit more. Connecting GitHub actions, GitHub activities with Jenkins, so that Jenkins could react and at every commit say like things are broken or not. That's where it was created because of sheer necessity, because the build was broken so often. Since then, it's mostly not been broken. And then with GitHub Actions coming, raising, and GitLab, etc., with all these commodity CI, and Travis was that, but it's gone now. There's lots of repositories, like the Volto team is using it extensively for their own things and their own tests, but other of the hundreds of packages that we have nothing, or a few, but it's a bit of despair. So yeah, it's all good and nice, but we have to do a bit better. We have either solutions that are local, that you can run it locally, but it doesn't run on CI, or it runs differently. Some repositories have something, others not, or there's some common configuration, like Jenkins runs for across all the packages for every commit, but you only know that at that time. So we have to do something to standardize all of that pictures. So yeah, can we do that any better? So of course, this one was hiding from me when I tried to make a second picture, so that's the only I got. No, that's all the pictures are from my trail yesterday through Aber. Yeah, probably privacy. I didn't turn the privacy settings. So so of course, core contributors, let's say they care generally about Plone, but there's quite a big part of our community that it's maybe a bit on the sides of the community, that they participate, but maybe they are not on a daily basis on GitHub. They are maybe not every day on community.plone.org, etc. But every now and then they find the usual backing: Plone app caching, Plone app dexterity, content types, whoever. But that goes for both alike. Doesn't matter if you are a seasoned developer, doesn't matter if it's your first time contributing. If you have the very same developer experience, that just makes it easier and predictable for you as a seasoned developer. If it's your first time, then already you see that all the tools are there available for you, so you don't have to think like, well, what is their formatting way? How do they test? Do they test it at all? Do I have to know about any testing metrics that they have? What are the standards, the coding standards of this community that I want to contribute? And as my first batch, that I may be not even sure about things. So just that could be a random patch that someone would say, like remove the usage of get tool by name and instead use Plone API to get the portal actions. So quiz time. So is that patch working? Why? So it's missing the close. I mean, I made it on purpose so that I could make the quiz, sure. So yeah, so it's not working because it's missing the parentheses. But is it good enough? Is it ready to get merged? Oops. Stop. So, well, I mean, that's me being picky and for this talk, of course. But the get tool by name, then it can be, the import could be removed. So does it break? And that's quite of an interesting question. Does it break other code or even the test, the package itself? Oops. Well, so it's you can see at the top that it's the patch is against Plone base, and it's using the Plone API. So that's like, it just creates a huge circular dependency that will break everything. So no. So the thing is that, well, all those things, can I know it before I push that? Can I get some feedback on my own before I actually can do that? Now with this Plone meta that I'm trying to slowly introduce, yes, up until now, if you were a seasoned developer or Moritz, and you were using build.coredev and using bin test there, you could at least spot a few things. But if you are the occasional developer that you want to just fix the bug, that contribute back, be nice to the community and contribute back the fix that you found on Plone app caching, whatever, then you are, if you just git clone the repository and work on it, you are basically out of options. Like, you just can push and pray for the best. And then finally, again, just for the sake of a point, does it blend with the project standards? No, because we are using black and they use double quotes. But that's, I mean, and of course here it's a stupid tool line changes, but the general, I mean, and you can, if you stare enough, you can spot all the things that I was mentioning. But the regular patch, the regular pull request, maybe it's like doing changes across 4, 5, 6 files. Maybe it's changing 100 lines of codes, so it's easy to start missing all of those. And as I was saying, as I was making the analogy with the 3-pix story, the sooner that if we don't try to be strict to a relaxed way of relaxed definition of a strictness, but if we start getting the bricks not so goodly shaped, then the castle starts falling apart. So I have no idea what was that, but it looks so cool. I think it was a mushroom, but for the shape it doesn't. Whatever. Avar locals maybe know what's that. Oh yeah. Okay. Okay, I didn't touch it. Thanks. Okay, good. So, so more raising hands. How many of you had made an add-on, either public or private? Cool. How many times have you asked on other or even on your own add-on, is it working? And created an issue for that? Because, well, basically, if you don't have any insight on the package, if you didn't develop it yourself, is it easy to know if it's working or not right now? not the latest release, but what's on master. Um, does it work for the Plone version that I'm using, which might not be the latest and bleeding edge? What about the dependencies that it has? Like if you are using, there's this add-on to manage the tags of a site, so that you, yeah, thanks. So this add-on has a C dependency to get the Levenstein distance of tags and so on. So is that still working? Is an old version? Does it run on my server of the choice? And for that, it says that it's working, but then it breaks when I try to push it to production. As I was saying before, what about the last release that I'm using? And now that I did a fix to it and I contribute that to production, is it working? Is it breaking? Maybe it's fixing my use case, but it's breaking threads. How do you know all of that? And of course, plenty more questions that we could ask about. But of course, I'm just talking about old stuff, old add-ons that they are maybe not so much maintained anymore or so. So yeah, that's just old add-ons, not a nice image. But what about the new add-on? So most of you said that you created new add-ons. So of course you are proud of them. You even are nice that you contribute a few of them to the collective organization. So I guess you can be sure that they work when you have developed them. But does it work afterwards? So how much can you be sure that it works after a few days of having developed it? After you merge a pull request by yourself and you do it, you did the Plone API change, and as you were in a rush and you had to push it, then you forgot to close the parentheses. Is it working then? Is it not? How much can you be sure that it works after a few weeks? After not only you, but someone at the other side of the globe found your add-on really useful and made some contributions. What about after a few months? When the dependencies maybe got outdated, or there's newer versions of them that break the assumptions that this add-on had, or their security releases. And especially after a few years, if there's new Python versions that maybe deprecate things or make it already breaking because it's all this list of warnings that you have been ignoring. And yeah, well, it's just warnings. Who cares? Or of course, Plone comes with newer versions. At some point, Plone will implement the PEP 4.2.0, and then everything just breaks right after. So you basically gave up because it's just so much. So welcome to maintenance hell. So a bit more of the path. So now we solve ourselves to meta, and that's it. They solve it. No, so all this was about to introduce this Plone meta. So it's a repository in GitHub Plone/meta. So I'm just the one getting the credits, at least today, but I didn't do much of it. That's an idea that even when you are less and less and less developers, it comes to much more attention, how much the maintenance costs of so many packages how much effort you have to put in maintenance for so many packages, and how much repeatable, and for that so much boring it gets to it. So the idea of Plone meta is, the idea is simple at the end, and that's the good ones. So they created a repository where they keep some templates for the configuration of setup.cfg, PyProject.toml, tox.ini, GitHub Actions, GitLab Actions, whatever and whatnot, Flakehate, whatever, all the tools that you want to use across to have this common shared developer experience. And then alongside these templates, they have some super small scripts, like they are like 200-300 lines, I think, that you can then point this tool to a repository so that it configures it to adapt to this setup. So then, if you run that across all the repositories, then you have the very same user developer experience everywhere. So now, for example, we are using tox. So you run tox -e test, and you run the tests for that repository. And you can go to Plone app content types, Plone dexterity, Plone app caching, you name it, and you have the very same setup. You have the very same approach. The same for getting the dependencies solved. Like one of the early this year at the Alpine City Sprint in Innsbruck, we had this. We have been always saying that Plone is a complete mess regarding dependencies, that somehow it works, but well, there's no clear definition and boundaries of that, and there's lots of cyclic dependencies, but somehow of pure luck, it's still running. So thanks to having Plone Meta on almost all the repositories and developing a tool again to find those cyclic dependencies, we could apply that. We could apply this tool that checks the dependencies, if there's any cyclic dependency in every repository. Found, of course, plenty of them. Eventually, they were solved, but that's the key. Once I fixed the circular dependencies, someone unwillingly might introduce those back, and we are back at the same setup. And then someone, me or whoever of you, does have to fix that again. By having this in Plone Meta and then integrated into CI, we can, from the very first day that we fix these circular dependencies, we can again ensure that it doesn't repeat, or at least that we get warned before actually merging the pull request. Nice tree. So in Plone Meta, so far we are doing running tests and coverage so that you can see what's working, what's not, and if you are breaking anything within the repository. Running all the tests for all the Plone packages that's still so far deferred to Jenkins. We have GitHub Actions integration and even GitLab if you are not, if your internal projects are not hosted in GitHub. We also check for documentation change for the changes MD. What I was mentioning, like that the dependencies are clearly specified, or that there's any circular dependencies, and of course they used the easy but important parts, the spelling, linters, formatters, whatever. Oh, and a last but interesting point, that whenever Moritz is about to cut a release of 300 packages, that he doesn't have to care or double check that all the packages do work, but rather if for whatever thing you broke something that prevents a release to be made, now we can also warn the developer that, hey, at that point is where you are breaking it. A picture. So that's the butterfly effect of having this tool in place. As soon as you have all the packages with this setup, there's no circular dependencies that will enter our Plone instance. All the code will be used in the same way. It will be so much easier to do to work any point across the stack, from the Berry Zope repositories to the Plone ones, or the add-ons, or collective, or if you actually want, Plone Meta is hosted on the GitHub organization, in the Plone GitHub organization, but for that it's not only meant for Plone. Emio, whoever can also. We are using that in our internal. Erico is also using that. So please use it. It's complete, well, not completely, but it's extendable, it's configurable, so that you can have your own different options. So we can use it in Plone add-ons, internal packages, why not? And then the more we are using this tool, then it's easier to add more features, to provide other options, and to just take it to the next level if there's any need of that. Huge one. So what would be next? I mean, we already are covering a lot with Plone Meta so far, but of course there's always more. One thing that Erico is asking is to be able to test across different Plone versions, or maybe even across Python versions. What about maybe testing it for the classic UI and the REST API if the add-on exposes some REST API endpoints? And of course, that's the point. If you have to do it for your own add-on, well, you can do that. But keeping that working for all the Plone, Zope, collective, internal packages, that's just too much work that nobody wants to do it. And let's not forget, because that's quite of an interesting point as well, that the idea of the Plone meta so far, how it is configured, is that the very same commands that you can run it locally, they are also the ones that are running in CI. So this means that whenever you see pull request in GitHub failing, you know exactly how you can reproduce that locally, and it's not like, oh, it doesn't happen on my laptop, so it's your problem, it's your fault. No, if it happens on CI, you can also replicate it locally. At least the commands. It's if there's something down there because you are using Mac OS and Linux and so on, well, that's another matter. So what else can we do? We have Cookie Cutter, we have Plone CLI, we have pop templates, all of that. Constellation of package generators, the structure template generators. So integrating that so that from the very beginning they are already configured with this with Plone Meta, that would of course make it nicer. Having that's what Erico was asking some time ago, that you can actually from the add-on itself, that you can run a Plone instance with this add-on, so that you can test live your changes before writing your test, because of course all of you will write tests for it. That would be a huge benefit. Of course, as any tool, they keep evolving, and you have to update them every now and then. So having a way to self-update itself, or have some sort of pre-commit CI service that tells you like, hey, there's something that needs to be updated and so on, would be nice. It's tricky, or at least I didn't have any idea, or not any specific ideas how to solve that. When you are spending 2 hours walking and then you find some berries, they are highly appreciated. And that's the cool thing of having the tool. Doesn't matter the implementation details of the tool, is The tool itself is that, for example, now we are using, as I've mentioned, we are using Tox, the test runner, but that's just an implementation detail. Maybe tomorrow we can use Nox, we can use Docker, we can use containers, dev containers, whatever. Maybe there's, of course, there will be people that would say that they prefer Docker, they prefer Nox, they prefer Tox. But if we can keep all these configurations, all these developer experiences together in the Plone meta repository, it means that we can apply that across. So if now we make a referendum and we say like, hey, everyone here is up for using containers, well, we change it in one single repository. In Plone meta, we apply it to a few of them to test it, to waterproof it, and once that we are happy, we just run across all the repositories, and from next day it's not tox -e test, but rather Docker or make run tests. But again, the developer experience is kept across. So it rained a little bit. So yeah, please test it, use it, and of course contribute like all of these have done already. So please, thanks to all of you. And thanks for listening. I reached the peak. So of course, questions.
Okay. First thing.
Welcome.
It's awesome. One thing I was going to ask you is, because I'm mentioning about cookie cutter, because not everything is a clear Python package on the root folder. To do the cookie cutter integration would be awesome, because we have the concept of backend content. It would also be awesome to support Voto and JavaScript in same way. How can we work in that direction without breaking everything?
Contributions welcome.
Come on, I know, but
I mean, you are there already.
My name is there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm definitely not an expert in cookie cutter, and I haven't had a look so far. But I mean, so as I was mentioning, I'm just the imposter here. The bulk of the work and the concept and the idea was coming from the Zope Foundation contributors, from Michael and yeah, the Zope Jens, not our Jens. So in there, given that Zope is a bit more complex, they have some C code and other stuff and so on. They have some, they have different skeletons already. Like they have a skeleton to configure packages that are meant for C code, so that they can test the C compiling the C code, etc. in different platforms, different architectures, and so on. As in Plone, we are safe from that so far. So we have that simpler, but we can of course extend Plone meta to have separate scaffoldings for that. So I guess it's gonna be a bit of work, but I think it's doable.
Someone else?
Others? Sure. Yeah, it could be a sprint idea. Sure. I'm only here on Saturday, but sure, we could work on that.
Okay, so thank you everyone.
Cool. And of course,
lunch on the...
that's the path.
There's now lunch on the upper floor,
Cool.
so everyone...
Let's go get food. And before the other.